Hey guys, this is the Mall Fox here, and today I'm going to show you guys the Oak Court Mall, located in Memphis, Tennessee. History on this mall begins all the way back in the early 1960s. On November 12, 1961, Goldsmith's, which was Memphis's famous department store chain, opened its doors at its first suburban location at the intersection of Poplar Avenue and Perkins Road. The three-level Goldsmith's, originally 105,000 square feet, was built directly next to a 200-year-old oak tree. Therefore, the store was dubbed Oak Court. The Goldsmith's store would expand 2 times, doubling in size in 1967 and adding an additional 40% in size in 1976. Due to the success of Goldsmith's and also the interest of New York-based Lord & Taylor in the Memphis market, plans would be formulated to attach a luxury shopping mall to the massive Goldsmith's department store. Developers for the site would be Bell's Enterprises and Henry Turley Jr., who were both under a partnership with other silent benefactors known as Southern Poplar. During planning, special care was taken to ensure that the surrounding century-old oak trees were preserved and integrated into the new development. This led to a large and heavily wooded courtyard that was originally attached to the center court of the mall, and it was encased by an office building on the outside. This created a park attached directly to the mall, which was not only used for events such as concerts, but also featured a seasonal botanical garden. The mall with its upscale anchor lineup had the architecture to match, with a collection of fine art pieces throughout, over 100,000 square feet of imported dark green marble flooring, which you're looking at right now, and 5,000 square feet of blonde Italian marble to accent in planters and other fixtures. 5 miles of neon were on the ceilings and other areas of the mall, and the center court, as shown in the beginning, had a grand fountain with a massive spinning marble ball floating on pressurized water. Sadly, today, the water is no longer functioning in that fountain. On opening day, which was September 16th, 1988, shoppers at the glitzy new mall could find upscale and new-to-market stores such as Backrack, the Disney Store, Bailey Banks & Biddle, Victoria's Secret, The Limited, Brentano's Books, Gantos, American Eagle, Contempo Casuals, Pasta by Paul Harris, Lily Rubin, and many more. The opening day store count was 54, which meant that the mall was about 70% occupied, a number that was projected to be 90% by the end of 1989. Interestingly, developer Southern Poplar sold the mall to New York-based Shopping Center Associates for $69.5 million in May of 1989, not even a year after the mall had opened. J.W. O'Connor, a division of Shopping Center Associates, was hired to manage the mall, which is a familiar name for malls up north, with this group being involved with malls like Menlo Park Mall in New Jersey, and the then-in-progress The Westchester in New York. However, the new owners of Oak Court said that the growth of the mall was sluggish, and they attributed this to a majority of shoppers feeling intimidated by the lush, luxurious shopping environment of Oak Court Mall. They felt like shoppers thought that every store inside was expensive, and thus they wouldn't bother visiting the mall at all. Another issue included management not being able to immediately sign a sit-down restaurant, which was built by the entrance to the outdoor garden park. The district manager of The Limited, located inside the mall, said that, quote, "A lot of women who shop like to meet their friends for lunch," end quote. The new owners of the mall planned to try and make the mall appeal to more people by using several methods, including undercover customer service people that would interact with stores inside the mall to make sure customer service was adequate. Another method was an advertising campaign to reposition the mall as more of an every person's mall. Despite the disappointing performance for the new owners, Lord & Taylor was said to have had a great first year, exceeding expectations by 20%. Lord & Taylor's success would be short-lived, possibly due to the intentions to downscale the mall, and in 1992, Dillard's would buy 2 store locations in the Memphis market from the May Company. These locations were the Lord & Taylor at Oak Court Mall and the Talheimers at Mall of Memphis. Both locations were converted into Dillard's. May Company, a department store holding company, had most of its Lord & Taylor stores congregated in the Northeast, and felt that the Memphis area did not have a future in upscale retail, in addition to it being an oddity in its retail coverage. Kind of unfortunately, in 1995, the massive glass wall and mall entrance to the park area outside would be sealed off, as a Dillard's men's store and a couple other smaller shops would take up the space. There was also an Oshman's Sporting Goods store that was eaten up by the new men's store, in addition to the aforementioned sit-down restaurant that was never leased. During this time, the mall would keep getting new stores that one might be familiar with today, like Things Remembered, Gap Kids, and Trade Secret. Tragically, a decently high-profile incident would take place on December 26, 1996, when Angela Kyle was shot in the head point-blank in her 1996 Saturn. She was only 27 years old. Her car was in the upper level of the Goldsmith's parking garage, and her body was not found until the afternoon of the 28th. Police later arrested 2 suspects who were a part of the Gangster's Disciple gang. Devin M. Crawford, 16 at the time of the incident, was later sentenced to life in prison for his involvement in the death of Angela Kyle. The then 17-year-old driver and accomplice, Carcecil Riley, was sentenced to 15 years in 1999 and possibly is out free today. The family of Angela Kyle later sued the owners of Oak Court Mall and Federated Department Stores, parent of Goldsmith's, for her death. They claimed that the mall and Goldsmith's did not have adequate security in the parking deck, citing how they did not find her body for 2 days. There was a lack of security cameras in the parking garage and only a security detail at the entrances of the mall to stop shoplifters. This lawsuit comes after a string of robberies that began happening at the mall property leading up to the death of Angela Kyle. Eventually, Goldsmiths, the mall, and the Kyle family settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of money. On February 26, 1997, 20 minutes east of Oak Court Mall in the suburb of Germantown, Wolf Chase Galleria opened its doors for the first time, featuring Goldsmiths, JCPenney, Dillard's, and Sears, along with over 100 upscale retailers and restaurants. Analysts predicted this new Galleria would harm business at all other Memphis malls, including Oak Court. However, the effects would turn out to be much more serious at Hickory Ridge Mall and Mall of Memphis, neither of which would ever really recover after the opening. Later in 1997, Simon DeBartolo Group would buy out shopping center associates, thus giving them control of the Oak Court Mall. This meant that 5 of the 6 major malls in Memphis were now owned by 2 property management entities. Simon DeBartolo owned Oak Court and Raleigh Springs Mall, and urban properties owned Wolf Chase Galleria, Hickory Ridge, and Mall of Memphis. Despite the tragic events in December 1996 and the opening of the nearby Wolf Chase Galleria, Oak Court would see continued success through the late 90s and into the turn of the millennium. In 1998, Banana Republic opened a 6,400 square foot store at the mall, their third location in Memphis. The mall would gain one of Tennessee's first Starbucks locations in 2000, with other stores debuting around this time including Aveda, Aeropostale, Ann Taylor Loft, Jesse McClintock, and a Red Robin's hamburger. Oak Court's general manager at the time, Michael Ernest, stated that this brought the center's occupancy up to 93%, but with temporary tenants, the mall's true occupancy was 100%. However, I have a unique opinion. I think it's technically fair to say that this mall has been on a very gradual downward slope since its grand opening. An article written in 2001 details several stores that have since left Oak Court Mall, including the Disney store, which has been inside the mall since its 1988 opening. Disney chose to keep 2 locations open in the Memphis market, including at Wolf Chase Galleria, and strange to think about nowadays, Hickory Ridge Mall. Yeah, the Disney store at Hickory Ridge Mall outlasted Oak Court Mall's store. Another minor change happened when the Goldsmith's name was consolidated with Macys to form Goldsmith Macys in 2003. Then, sadly, the Goldsmith's name was phased out in 2005 when every co-branded chain was rebranded again to just Macys. As the 2000s rolled into the 2010s, the tenant roster became less and less upscale at the Oak Court Mall. Competition from the new Carriage Crossing Lifestyle Center that opened in 2008, and many upscale and luxury stores exclusively choosing Saddle Creek in nearby Germantown for their Memphis market locations was the reason for this. Another issue is, since the 1996 murder of Angela Kyle, the mall never did shake off its reputation and predisposition for crime. Countless robberies, shootings in and around the mall, and another murder in 2021 have plagued this mall and the surrounding area. However, to say that this mall was a dead or dying mall into the late 2010s is disingenuous. In 2014, the mall boasted mall mainstays like Victoria's Secret, Loft, American Eagle, Stride-Rite, Hollister, Joseph A. Bank, Charlotte Russe, Banana Republic, and more, with a full food court containing Chick-fil-A, Subway, Sbarro, Charlie's Philly Steak, and more. However, like I said, I have that theory that this mall has been on a gradual downward slope since it opened. By the late 2010s, this mall had shifted into a totally mid-scale mall. Almost every upper mid and upscale chain had left. To make matters worse, Simon Property Group, a mall owner who today owns some of the most successful malls in the United States, spun off around 100 properties in 2014 to a group known as Washington Prime Group. Oak Court Mall was one of these properties. Essentially, this means that Simon did not consider this mall an A or B tier property worth investment into, and thus spun it off. However, like I mentioned, in 2019 the mall was still holding its own, and it did have a full anchor roster up until 2021 with Macys, Dillard's, and the Dillard's men's store. By this point, the Memphis area retail landscape had thinned. Mall of Memphis, affectionately named Mall of Murder, had closed in 2003, being demolished in 2004. Raleigh Springs, which used to be owned by Simon, ended its run in 2016. Southland Mall and Hickory Ridge have fallen from grace to an extreme degree, and Southbrook Mall, well, its relevance hasn't been noted since the 1980s. This essentially left Oak Court and Wolf Chase Galleria as the decent malls to go shopping in Memphis, with Carriage Crossing and Saddle Creek as the more upscale outdoor alternatives. Things would change going into the pandemic and beyond, however. The Dillard's Men and Home store closed in 2021, with those departments being consolidated into the main store, and many tenants would continue to leave. Chick-fil-A closed on February 13th, 2021, and to backfill spaces left by more traditional retail, lower quality stores would take up residency at the mall. By 2025, in this footage, there is still life here, with H&M, Children's Place, Journeys, Finish Line, and a few more. But the mall is struggling at this point, and locals have been calling it a dead mall for a long time now. It's a far cry from the upscale and luxury stores that this mall opened with. This leads into the latest news for the property. In January 2025, it was announced that Macys would close 66 underperforming stores, Oak Court being one of them. It closed in March of 2025. In 2023, 2 years prior to the Macys closing, a group of investors known as Pogue Development purchased the mall for over $14 million. They announced plans to tear down the mall starting with Macys, and later moving on to the rest of the mall. Planned development is a typical mixed-use development with small retail, housing, and medical. As of this video, Dillard's still owns their pad, and that part of the mall structure is currently part of the redevelopment plan. In my opinion, this has got to be one of the prettiest malls left open in the United States, at least that I've ever visited. And it's going to be a really big shame when this place is torn down for yet another soulless lifestyle development. But that's going to conclude my video on the Oak Court Mall. If you guys liked this video and you want to see more, consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and ring the bell, that way you never miss an upload, and leave a like on this video. Drop a comment down below if this mall, or any of the other Memphis malls in relation to this one, were a place that you spent time at as a kid, or sometime in your adult life, or if you just want to leave me a nice comment to read. And otherwise, stay tuned for the next mall video.